Gyfeillwn bore da a chryso cynnes bob un ohonoch chi. Welcome back to Llandudno. It's wonderful we're here once again, our first meeting in this place since April 2023. As I welcome you all, I just need to go through some of the arrangements relating to the governing body's meeting before we turn to our substantive business. So I crave your indulgence for a few moments, if I may, please. It was delightful for us to meet this morning in Holy Trinity. My gratitude to the vicar and wardens of Llandudno for their welcome and for those who've helped make worship take place. Once more, governing body's worship is in the capable hands of a certain Reverend James Tout, my chaplain. This evening, evensong will take place at St Paul's Church, Craig Adon, and the location and time of that are marked out for us in our papers. The prayers and Bible study will be here in the hall tomorrow. As usual, there may be a media presence. ITV and BBC may come and film during our meeting and during the President's address as well. Do take time, if you will, to look at the exhibition tables in the meeting. I won't go through them, but a significant number of people have come, and we're grateful for their presence, all of which relate to our life as a church. So please do take time to visit the stalls, which, as usual, are just behind this meeting and maybe down in the entrance hallway as well. A procedural word, as usual, motions during the meeting, governing body will be asked to vote. These are set out, of course, in our agenda papers to which they apply. If any amendments to motions are to be suggested, you need to provide 2 written copies of the proposed amendment, signed by the proposer, and these should be given to Canon Simon Lloyd, the lay secretary here to my left. Alternatively, amendments can be submitted by email to the usual email address, which is amendments@churchinwales.org.uk. And the lay secretary has confirmed that an email sent to that address shall be deemed to meet the requirements of providing 2 written copies. If there is any dispute or question about this, Matthew Chinnery, once again, is one of our assessors and head of legal services on hand to advise members about amendments. As I said, you will be invited to vote during our meeting on a number of occasions. You'll be asked to vote in favour, to vote against, or whether you wish to abstain. To vote is very simple. You raise your hand holding your voting card, and that will register your vote. At this meeting, all votes are expected to be votes of the whole governing body, for which simple majorities are only required. There are many guests, and we're delighted, and I'll say a word to our guests in just a moment. But please do remember, everyone, only members of governing body are eligible to vote. So if you're a guest or a visitor, please don't raise your hand. Turning to those who will be here as non-members, they are involved in our meeting and are usually involved in speaking, indeed invited to speak during our debates and presentations. Rather than, again, asking for your consent for each occasion, if I run through the list, can I take them en bloc as having your permission to take part and to speak at our meeting? So it's Mr. Mike Wakeman, Director of IT, Ms. Isabel Thompson, Diocesan Secretary for Monmouth, Dr. Monica Atias, the community of Sant Egidio, Reverend Dr. Canon Tristan Hughes, and the Reverend Professor Jeremy Duff. I think that's James Lang as well. And James Lang is here to add to that list as well. Are you happy to take them en bloc and to give your assent for them speaking? Would you please show? Are there any against? Thank you. I won't take abstentions. I'm really grateful for that. Of course, in croesawu, I should ask, we should test the machine, shouldn't we? Gai just yn gofyn I bawb troi'r headsets, just I checio bod systemau yn gweithio. Os yw unrhyw broblem, fedrwch chi codi eich dwylo, ond dwi yn tybio. Pawb yn hapus, mae'r systemau yn gweithio. cadwch headset. Mae yna groeso, wrth gwrs, trwy gydol ein cyfarfod i bawb defnyddio yr iaith Cymraeg. Mae yna croeso i defnyddio y Cymraeg yn aml iawn, iawn. So diolch i bob sydd yn defnyddio yr iaith Cymraeg yn ein cyfarfod. There will be a collection. We have restored this practice once again to governing body, and I have nominated the community of St. Egidio to receive the collection. We will hear from Dr. Monica Atias later in our meeting. Please do give generously. There are card machines downstairs. They, like so many charities, rely upon the goodwill of those who can give, and their work is utterly transformative, as you will hear. So I want to encourage significant generosity, if I may, in the giving that we make to Sant Egidio. If I may, I want to turn to words of welcome. I've already had the pleasure of being in the company of the Most Reverend Mark O'Toole, Archbishop of Cardiff, who has indicated that he will be with us and is seated with our colleague bishops here at the front. I think this is the first occasion in which a Roman Catholic Archbishop has addressed the governing body of the Church in Wales. A hugely significant occasion for us, and a mark of the depth that we have been able to work towards and create in our good relationships. And I just want to endorse from my position as president of the governing body all that Archbishop Mark said this morning, both about the things on which we agree and hold in common, but perhaps the transforming relationships, the culture and the spirit of ecumenism, which he has done so much to facilitate, and about which I will say a little more in my presidential address. But Mark, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for spending time to be with us. No less significant in their wonderful contribution, drawing us together in a new way, I think, is the presence, once again, of Dr. Cynan Llwyd, who is the General Secretary of Cytun. Cynan has again agreed to be with us. This is not new, but his ongoing ministry of bringing us together is breathing new life into Cytun and the churches in Wales. Cynan, thank you so much for being here. We're delighted that you've joined us. I'll have more to say about Gethin a little bit later, but croeso cynnes Gethin, mae braf cael eich cwmni yma unwaith eto. I've already mentioned Dr. Monica Atias, but a very warm welcome formally to Monica to Wales, as well as to Llandudno, and here to the meeting of the governing body. We're delighted that once more from the Methodist Church and the Wales Synod, the Reverend Canon Dr. Jenny Hurd is here once more. Ac wrth gwrs, unwaith eto, o'r undeb yr annibenwyr Cymraeg, mae Jeff wedi cytuno unwaith eto i fod yma. Diolch o galon am eich presenoldeb. Mary McNeil will be representing Christian Aid Cymru and is here as well, and we're grateful for all that she brings to the Church in Wales and the GB. And then from the Council for Welsh Sunday Schools, Cyngor Ysgolion Sul a Parchedig Ale Davies sydd yma hefyd. I understand that from the United Society of Partners in the Gospel, Carol Miller, their church engagement manager, is also present. I'm not sure, Carol, where are you? You're here. Warm welcome to you. I'm not sure if this is your first meeting. We're delighted you've come to join us. Thank you so much. Welcome. I think, unless I'm going to be told to the contrary, those are all of our guests and all of the preliminaries that we need to attend to. If that is the case, could we turn then formally to our agenda, please, and Agendum 3, and the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th and 5th of September 2024. You've been asked in advance to notify of any changes proposed so that those changes could be dealt with prior to our meeting. No member has indicated that they wish to raise any point. Please may I ask the governing body to receive these minutes formally with a show of hands. If you're in favour of acknowledging and receiving these minutes, please raise your hand. Thank you. Are there any against? Are there any abstentions? There are none. May I sign the minutes as a correct record of the meeting of the governing body held on the 4th and 5th of September 2024. Thank you very much. The two of you that raise your hands. I'll sign those minutes in due course. Could we turn to agenda 4, please, and matters arising. Once more, you were invited to notify the Secretariat by Friday, the 25th of April, of any matters you may wish to raise. No comments have been received on the minutes, so matters arising are dealt with. Before we turn to the presidential address, I will vacate this seat and ask Moira Randall to come and take the chair. Thank you, Moira.
Good morning, members of governing body. We turn to agenda number 5, which is our presidential address. As you will see by your overall agenda, you will have an opportunity to engage with that address, but in a slightly different format this year. After His Grace has delivered his address, we will take a short break and then we will return and we will have small group discussions where you can raise your questions, but more on that later. Till that time, Your Grace, please.
Chair, thank you. Andrew, Archbishop of Wales. Once again, welcome everyone. Come with me in your mind's eye on a journey. We're going deep into God's country, Ceredigion. The most storied and beautiful, surely, of all of the many beautiful parts of Wales. Heading south from Aberystwyth, we've travelled through Rhydyfelin, Llanfarian, and just beyond Blaen Plwyf, we find our way in the vicinity of Llanrhystyd. Just as the road bends near the village, you will pass a ruined cottage, and upon its stones a defiant blaze of red proclaims a now iconic phrase, Cofiwch Tryweryn. Remember Tryweryn. You've seen it on your car stickers as much in the south of Spain as anywhere else. It's much more than graffiti. It's a memory. It's, for some, a wound. It's a call to attention. It recalls, of course, the drowning of that Welsh-speaking village in 1965 to create a reservoir to supply Liverpool and the Wirral, without, at the time, the consent of Welsh authorities. But it's become, since then, something much, much larger, a symbol, a story, perhaps a protest too, from a shared consciousness that says, don't forget who you are. Now, however we regard that slogan, we recognise that a nation's identity is never static. It shifts, it grows, forged in triumphs and tragedies alike. We could reference the coal dust of the South Wales valleys, the scars of the quarries up in the north, the defiance of Owain Glyndŵr, in the memory, the sad memory of Aberfan, the poetry of two beautiful languages and the magic of Gareth Edwards. But perhaps we won't say much about rugby today. The point is that a shared identity is always alive. It's always in transition, always engaging with its surroundings and with its culture. And if that is true for the nation of Wales, it is true for the church as well, shaped as we have been by our revivals, by a hymnody that again is present in 2 languages, the stories of saints and pioneers who brought faith to these shores many centuries ago and who founded communities across our nation. Scripture offers theological mirrors, if you like, that capture this dynamic of change. We could reference the exile, which forced the nation to revisit and redefine what it meant to belong to God while far from their promised land. Or the radical inclusion of the Gentiles, redefining who was included in the family of God. These are stories of disruption and of reformation, but they're also stories of deep grace, of resilience, and also of hope. In the last year, I felt more deeply perhaps than ever that as a church we're being invited, perhaps even compelled, to adapt and to develop to the new challenges that we face, which are more numerous, coming from different directions than perhaps any could have anticipated. We need courage as we respond to each and every one of them. And so for this address, I want to frame what I have to share with you with that invitation, and to look particularly at 5 areas. As a church, called to become more professional, more grounded, more compassionate, more connected, and more creative. A dwi am siarad yn y Gymraeg, os gwelwch yn dda. I wish now to speak in Welsh, if I may. Yr eglwys sydd yn fwy proffesiynol, a gadewch i ni ddechrau gyda diogelu. Wrth raidd ein galwad i'w gofal eraill, ac yn enwedig tuag at y rai sy'n agored i niwed. Os methwn yma, methwn ym mhob man. Ac felly ein nod yw creu eglwys ddiogel lle mae arferion y diogelu da wedi gwreiddio yn union DNA ein bywyd gyda'n gilydd. Lle mae'n dod yn reddfol, yn atblygol, wedi'n blethu un gweinidogaeth ar bob lefel. Mewn Mae bob amser yn well ceisio cyngor a chaniatáu i dimau diogelu proffesiynol gan fod y cemau nesaf. Hyd yn oed os mae'r canlyniad yw dim gweithredu pellach. Na dweud dim. Ni all distawrwydd fyth fod yn bolisi i ni, ddim o gwbl. Ac yn ail hyfforddiant, mae hyn yn allweddol. I ni'n tyfu mewn doethineb trwy ddysgu. Mae tîm diogelu'r Ydalaeth wedi datblygu gweithdai a modiwlau nad ydynt yn ymarferion ticio blychau, ond yn arferion ffurfiannol. Maent yn helpu i ddatblygu'r hyn y cyfeirir at y fwy fel chwilfrydedd proffesiynol. Ymwybyddiaeth lymach, sensitifrwydd i'r hyn nad yw'n eistedd yn iawn, parodrwydd i weithredu. Ac yn drydydd, datblygu coleg swyddogion y diogelu ardal weinidogaeth ym mhob esgobaeth. Mae rhaid i bob ardal gweinidogaeth benodi swyddog diogelu
a college of ASOs in every diocese to strengthen their work, share expertise, and build a local culture of safeguarding excellence. This approach would also be beneficial to ensure that locally we always implement safer recruitment principles for people that work with the vulnerable people, and undertake activity risk assessments to understand and manage safeguarding risk. But professionalism goes beyond safeguarding. As the governing body will know, the bishops have begun consultations on the liturgical provision for people in same-sex unions. Now, these sessions are not debates. They are listening exercises, not only for the bishops, but for each other. We listen to one another, and we listen for the Spirit. We do this not because agreement is easy or guaranteed, but because respectful listening is itself a transformative act. Early feedback has indicated that this has been appreciated and helped us to understand better and relate to those with different convictions from our own. If we are to walk together through complex matters, it must begin with the humility to listen well. Developing this mindset is to recognize we need to do discernment better. We will need to bring this same attitude with us to our engagement here in governing body next year, and of course at the end of this year in September, as we hear about the latest situation.
I want to say something about what I think it means to be a more grounded church. Back in September, I shared that we were preparing a Church in Wales sponsored summit on the issue of restoring Welsh rivers. And our starting point was simple, that too many of our rivers, very simply, were dying. That summit has taken place and the experience has been very positive. More than 90 delegates from across different sectors, the environmentalists, farmers, scientists, policymakers, community holders, all gathered to share a common concern, the causes behind the degrading of the water quality of Welsh rivers. And we're familiar with the problems. Polluted by ageing infrastructure, industrial runoff, intensive agricultural practices, and a regulatory framework which cannot cope, our waterways are under grave threat. What the summit revealed is that the Church in Wales has a significant role to play in the life of the nation. Not as experts, certainly not in water management, but as conveners. We're good at that, and we've been told that we have a unique role and place to give. We can bring people together. We can help align values and efforts. We can encourage collaboration where there might otherwise be fragmentation. Welsh Government First Minister Eluned Morgan spoke at the event and invited us to submit 5 key issues for government consideration. And the response from the Deputy First Minister is attached to a copy of this address. An encouraging response showing that they have noted who we are and what we're seeking to do. That summit cannot be a one-off. It mustn't be. It has to be a statement that the Church in Wales will be present in the public square, attentive to the cry of the earth as much to the cry of the people of Wales. And in 2026, we will build on this with another summit exploring how the Church can speak and act wisely in the face of pressing societal changes. Last September, I had the privilege of attending the European Peace Conference in Paris to speak on one of the most complex and fast-moving issues of our time, artificial intelligence. We've all seen the headlines. AI-generated models, Vanity Fair spy cartoons, fake celebrity images, conversations powered by language models like ChatGPT. It's astonishing how quickly the technology is evolving. But speed isn't, I think, the primary concern. Ethics is. I'll respond later in GB to a question about AI in more detail, but wish to note here that, of course, AI holds enormous promise. Healthcare, education, climate action, being able to identify areas under greatest threat, but without a shared ethical framework and without a regulatory oversight, it could deepen inequalities and accelerate harm, including the development of awful and destructive weaponry. We lack what the late Pope Francis has called for, an internationally agreed ethical framework with the power to hold developers and nations accountable and an oversight arrangement with power to compel compliance. But I do want to commend to you his recent reflection, Antiqua et Nova, a deeply thoughtful treatment of how artificial and human intelligence must be held in creative tension across the spheres of war, health, truth, and of course our spiritual life. We do need to see the world and one another through the eyes of faith. The psalmist was right, Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord's, and that must inform our approach to technology, to power, and to policy. These things must not pass us by. We must not be passive onlookers, but as Christians, committed deeply to the development of scientific models which are shaped by good ethics. I want to say a little bit now what I think needs to be a kind of calling card for us, which is how we develop to be a more compassionate church. Of course, that is already in our DNA. And our day-to-day work in our parishes, in our mission and ministry areas, is founded upon our compassionate approach to those who are most vulnerable. But I've been especially moved to invite Dr. Monica Atias to the governing body. She leads the Sant'Egidio Humanitarian Corridors program and has made it possible for countless lives to be changed for good. Families bereft of hope, of purpose and economy have been fed, housed, educated and given an opportunity to live well. Her work flows from a deep faith rooted in Christ and radically expressed in action. She is one of the most remarkable human beings I've ever had the privilege of meeting, and she's here with us. If you've ever joined the Sant'Egidio community in worship in the Vatican, you'll know that it's possible to pair devotion and action, prayer and protest, stillness and solidarity. Monica embodies that balance, and I am profoundly grateful she's made the journey to be with us. I thought she might have been, perhaps over the weekend, in Rome. No, in Pakistan, she told me. Her work is a living reminder we must learn the radical ways of gentleness and peace. And of course, we are already doing a great deal of that in warm banks, food banks, social enterprises, the quiet care of our neighbour. We've always existed for those outside our number, to embody the love of Christ in word and in deed. But we must urge our government also to prioritise the plight and the needs of those who are most vulnerable, whether in these lands or abroad. As Mark Carney, newly elected in Canada, has said, our task is not simply to plan for the future, but to plan the future. And that planning must begin with compassion. Dwi am siarad yn y Gymraeg, unwaith eto, os gwelwch yn dda. Yr eglwys sydd yn fwy cysylltiedig, ac wrth gwrs nid ydym ar ein pennau ein hunain yn ein tostio tuag at Cymru. Yr ydym yn
We are
darganfod
discovering and developing, I believe, a new kind of ecumenism in Wales, one built on friendship, humility and shared mission. I've been deeply blessed by the ministry of Archbishop Mark O'Toole, who preached most powerfully to us this morning. I believe this is the first time a Roman Catholic Archbishop has preached at governing body. So as I said previously, it's a significant occasion and one to celebrate. Mark's warmth, openness and commitment to working with churches across the traditions has allowed us to reset relationships and forge new paths. Retreating together, Annibanwyr, Presbyterians, Charismatic Evangelical, Anglicans, Methodists, Baptists and Roman Catholics was something I could scarcely have imagined 5 years ago. But we did it, and we are learning to love one another as Christ loves us, listening well, seeking to bless wherever possible, honouring our traditions, and finding new space for ministry and conversation. As I also said, we also have a new General Secretary of Cytun, Dr Cynan Llwyd, and his leadership is building on previous work to connect our shared witness across Wales. And it's been an enormously positive move to work closely with Cynan these last 10 months. He said 10 years in Welsh instead of months. That's why they're laughing. Finally, a more creative church. Mission and ministry lie at the heart of our vocation, and I am deeply encouraged by the creative energy I am seeing across the province. I believe this is a sign we're learning to develop the patterns of ministry by extending the boundaries of our engagement. The Church Growth Fund has surfaced new ideas and bold ventures. A church plant in the Diocese of St Asaph from an existing church plant. The School Pioneers Project in the Diocese of Monmouth, efforts to renew rural ministry in the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon. These are not outliers. They are signs that we're finding new ways to be church, faithful to tradition, but unafraid of innovation. It would be a mistake to pit parochial ministry against pioneering ministry. The truth is, much of our ministry today is both. It is local and imaginative, grounded and experimental. Ministry area is often profoundly pioneering, and the pioneering draws on our inherited faith. And that is exactly as it should be.
So, to end, I began with Ceredigion, God's country, most blessed of places. Had we continued our journey just a little bit further south, further inland, we would have arrived at Llandudno, the site of the famous synod where David and others confronted the challenge of Pelagianism. Within that church lies the Idnert stone, inscribed with these words: "Here lies Idnert, son of Jacobus, who was slain on account of the plundering of David," or in another translation, died defending the church of David. It's the earliest physical evidence of David's missionary work. A marker not of conflict only, but of the deepest commitment. What made that era, which we call the period, the golden period, the age of the saints, was not ease, but attentiveness. The church was alert to dangers, to drifts, to opportunities, but they didn't retreat. They weren't overwhelmed by these problems. They responded with the deepest commitment, and because they did, their legacy is ours. New, different challenges face us today, but our hope is theirs. It's the same. And the power of God to guide and to sustain us has not changed and has not waned. Because of that, in this season, more than at any other, we can say, sisters and brothers, with confidence, Alleluia, Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed. Hallelujah.